Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SoulCast, Episode 3. I am your host, Scott, a.k.a. Zhang. Pretty easy to find me on the boards. And my co-host, as always, Billy, a.k.a. Funked. We are Midwest boys at heart.
Keeping it real.
Keeping it realsies. I guess, although, Billy, you're technically South, but, you know, you've been in Iowa.
Where I was born, unfortunately.
Yeah, you've been in Iowa long enough to be Midwest. So, lots of, I guess negativity is the only real way I can phrase it for the last podcast. And, man, we stirred the pot something fierce. I don't even know how else to put it, but that was MLG, things of the past. So now we need to go to the opposite end, and we need to talk about some other stuff going on, specifically California. And that is where our guest for this episode comes in. So let me introduce our guest. Hates, what is going on, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. So we did the MLG thing last podcast, and now we got to do some NCR action. But first, before we get into all of that goodness, you have your own, articles and stuff. Hopefully, everyone who's listening to this knows at least a little bit of who you are. But give us kind of a background, like your gaming background, a little bit of resume. Have you always? Has it been Caliber and only Caliber? What have you kind of branched into? All that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, Caliber is the only fighting game I've really played seriously. Not due to a lack of interest, but kind of lack of time / opportunity. Like, when it comes to games, that so much of it is where you are, and the people around you get you into stuff. I got in with Caliber too. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where I was living at the time, and Tulsa used to be a real Soul Calibur hotbed. And I made friends with these guys who spent way too much time in the arcade, and it just kind of turned out they were members of the community, and I got pissed off at losing to them all the time. So I got better, and I've been playing Soul Calibur games basically ever since.
That's usually how it starts, is jealousy.
Jealousy, rage. Actually, I met a couple of people who I realized very quickly that the only thing they had going for them in their entire lives was they thought they were good at this game. And if I could beat them at that and take it away from them, I would have ruined their everything. Just destroyed them utterly. And God, it's sweet nectar. And I can't think of any more powerful motivating factor than something along those lines.
That's awesome. I like that a lot. Yeah, there was a little arcade at a mall not far from the University of Iowa, and when I went to school there at the time, like in between classes, because college scheduling is just ass, so every once in a while you have a couple hours between classes or whatnot, and I'd go over, play some games, and come back, and it's really fun just mashing on people who think they're good at stuff, and then like the whole world collapses because they've been doing nothing but winning, and then all of a sudden they lose. Yeah, I definitely.
But to be fair, sorry, I'm cutting people off. But I was going to say, to be fair, I'm not just a scrub buster. My interests go a little bit beyond that, vaguely. Like the real short Cliff's Notes version started with SC2. It was my first competitive game of really any sort, so the learning curve was incredibly steep for me, but by the end of it I was pretty good. I was winning local and regional tournaments. SC3, the game that everyone hates, and no good players played that. I was very good at that game, so make of that what you will. Like, one of the big highlights there, I skipped nationals, but I won a tournament that was comprised entirely of national competitors like 2 weeks before, which is why I skipped nationals. I kind of felt it wasn't worth my time, and then Omega came, rolled that tournament, and I scraped past him in a first to 10, which was probably the best I ever played SC3, and my whole life was downhill after that point. So yeah,
I mean, it has to go down sometime, I guess.
I know. Well, because now I'm an old man, so the strategy is, since I can't hack it anymore, and I make okay decisions when I play, but I'm, again, ancient, dying, so I'm trying to parlay everything into being more of a community guy. I'm writing now, so I don't have to play as well. It justifies things like 5th place finishes.
That's funny that you say that, because I'm pretty much in the same Like I have so much other stuff going on. I can't put the hours and hours that you need into the game. So I justify any losses that I take by the fact that I do other stuff. So yeah.
I'm almost 30, so my reactions are not quite what they were when I was 18. So
Yeah, pretty much. And then when you do play, you're just pretty much banking on a decade of experience. Like, oh, I think he's going to do this because I've seen it a million times.
pretty much.
Yeah.
But hey, at least it gets you at least to the top half of the field. That's all that really matters. So, as long as you're not going 2 and out, that's
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself in the top 99% of the game, so it's good.
there you go. Not that bottom 1%. Awesome. Well, speaking of top places and whatnot, you did have a pretty good showing at NCR.
Oh.
I mean, you I guess to each his own, depending on this perspective. Maybe it wasn't as good as you may have wanted, but what you said, what was it, top 5? I just had it right.
Yeah,
Tied
it was,
fifth?
I believe. Yeah, tied for 5th.
Yeah, so I mean that's not shabby. I mean it was at least 100 people turnout, right? What do you know what the final turnout was?
Well, I don't know what the well, according to the results thread, there were tilde 100 participants. So that tells me there was anywhere between like 70 and 400,000. But yeah, we had a lot. We had like we had a number of pools and they were decently big. There were a lot of players.
5th out of 400,000. That's not too bad, bro.
That is.
That's still that's the 4th loser.
That's true.
Fair enough. So I guess let's start with NCR specifically, and then we'll kind of compare it to other stuff. But so it sounded like it still had a pretty good turnout, and you got 5th. So how was your experience? I read your article for your war report or whatever on that tournament, and it sounded like it was a pretty good tournament. Had what I would presume are like your standard scheduling issues that pretty much every tournament has. But aside from those, it sounds like a pretty good event. So kind of fill us in, I guess. What did they do really well? What do you want to see them improve on next time around? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be recapitulating a lot of what I said, but basically the standard scheduling issues were not in they were not in effect the same way that we're used to. Like the first day during pool play was stellar. Everything, it was just hitting on all cylinders. Everything began on time, and I knew where to be before I had to be there also, which, I mean, that's an amazing courtesy to have some sense of where you need to go and when. We went through things at a really good clip, and special shout outs to, it was Gene Duenas, I think. XL is the name he goes by. He ran it, and Sign and another guy out here, he facilitated that. He helped out, and that went pretty darn well. I mean, the only scheduling complaint was on day 2, the finals. We had to wait a while people were just showing up, and that's players dragging ass.
Which can happen.
When you start asking the shut-in nerd crowd to be somewhere at 10 in the morning, oof.
That was always been my biggest complaint with like Evo, is when nobody wants that 8 a.m. bracket. Nobody wants that one. It's like, please God, don't give me that fucking 8 a.m. bracket. Yeah,
I'm worthless before about midnight.
I think most people would feel the same way. You said just the finals? Was it the actual players, like the people competing?
There were some people who were actually competing who didn't quite make it there by 10. I think most everyone was present and accounted for by 11, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But the whole time I'm sitting there just thinking that I should have stayed home and slept. It kind of brought out a little bit of bitterness in me. But no, like that's a totally minor complaint though. I mean, really, logistically speaking, this was one of the best tournaments that I have attended in recent memory. Because everything seemed to work pretty well. Again, we got through it all quick, and no one had to be an egregious asshole to make that happen either. And that's kind of rare too. I mean, normally you have to choose between any amount of compassion and efficiency, but in this instance, like I could talk to a TO and be like, hey, I got a question, or hey, I'm gonna duck out for a second. Where's the bathroom? Whatever, and nobody bit my head off. So it was awesome.
Nice. Yeah, that's usually how I run tournaments. Get the fuck out of my way. Do what I tell you right now.
Well, like
Otherwise,
I run tournaments that way as well, but typically it's like if people need to go do stuff, as long as they tell me, I don't in particular care too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve is when people just fuck off and they don't tell anybody what they're doing. It's like, I just saw this guy standing here 10 seconds ago. Where did he go?
Yeah. That's okay. So that's the logistical side, but I'm sure you have more interesting questions than that.
Well, yeah. Well, obviously, top 5, you have to go through. I mean, this is kind of an elongated subject, but during the final round, there was the big question of what does the West Coast have in terms of player skill and et cetera, et cetera. And we didn't really see that up until NCR. So since you were at final round, and considering that you tied for 5th, obviously 5th has to go pretty lengthy distance into the bracket. How do you compare that? Was West Coast pretty prepared skill wise, or do you think like maybe the East Coast has a little bit of an edge based on the final round experience, or how do you compare those? And obviously any matches you played, feel free to give us any kind of commentary on that.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing is that I still don't think we're in a position to make any kind of meaningful comparisons, because the other thing about NCR is that it was the grand experiment in running the new patch. Mm-hmm. So and that doesn't seem like a major deal, except it's huge. The entire way you play the game is radically changed. Just by the backdash nerf. Like, leaving aside anything that has anything to do with individual character balance, the simple fact that all of a sudden you can't move the way that we're used to moving, whole new game. A lot of the styles that I was seeing at final round, and just hell, the style I was using and style that everyone had been using out here, it no longer works. So what we saw at NCR was it was people kind of flailing about trying to figure out the cheapest way, the most effective way to get stuff done. Like, okay, a great example here is at least in the NorCal area, I've been taking. I think I had. Yeah, we've had a number of tournaments. For the most part, I've finished first or second in basically every tournament I've been at, except for NCR and then like one other, when I got run over by the Mitsu train. And then Crazy CD, who's an excellent player. He has won basically every tournament out here that he's entered, except at NCR, he didn't make it out of pools. And it's not because he's bad. He's very, very good. It's just, everything gets a little wackier when the system changes and nobody has a huge amount of time to get a handle on it. So that's a really long way of saying that I still don't think we don't have a very stable context, because I can tell you how I think West Coast guys are on this new system. I can't tell you anything about the East Coast playing under the patch, and vice versa. In general, though, I mean, good players are everywhere. There are. When I play somebody and they're smart and they're doing the right things, and I just get a vibe of good, solid play, I mean, you can tell that eventually they're going to be good no matter what the system is. And I've gotten that from people pretty much all over.
Nice. So I guess, since we're talking about the patch, like you said, it is an experimental thing for NCR because the patch had just hit a few days earlier. So how did everyone even, well, I guess you can give before and after if you want to, but how did everyone feel about the patch? Did they feel that it was, most people say that a lot of things that needed to be changed were changed.
Mhm.
But, you mentioned the backdash change, which is a huge change for the foundation of the system and the way that you have to move. So do people like the patch, like the way in which you have to play on the patch, like your core fundamentals, or do they prefer, or did they prefer, pre-patch version?
Reaction has been kind of mixed. I mean, the new system clearly favors certain styles of play, and if that's something that you are, naturally, if it's something at which you're naturally more adept, then I think you're going to be predisposed to liking it more. Anyone who has been within screaming distance of me in the last week or two knows that I'm not a fan of this, and I've taken it really hard. There were a lot of tears, but I don't speak for everybody. So it seems to be kind of a point of contention.
All right, and that's that's a good point. If you're winning, obviously you like it.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, I've actually heard a lot of complaining, mostly because of the whole backdash thing, because it's a lot harder to move, and especially it seems like a lot of older players who base a lot of their game on just strong fundamentals, being able to anticipate grabs or lows, etc. They don't really like not being able to move fluently, so I hear a lot of negativity from them. But newer players seem to like it more, probably just because Natsu got nerfed. But whatever the case may be.
I'm still butthurt.
Still salty over here, this guy. Oh, so how about any of your individual matches? Like any players that kind of stood out to you as you were watching and playing, going through NCR? Maybe players that don't get out very often or don't travel that maybe we should keep an eye on.
Well, a lot of what we saw toward the top of the bracket. I mean, there are good players there. Alex J, he's a local guy out here. He is not prone to travel all that much, but yeah, he's always been really solid and really basic, and that's one of the things that the new system benefits, and he figured it out quicker than pretty much anyone. And well, if you go back and watch the matches, he lost in the grand finals because he knew nothing about Nightmare, which again is not to take anything away from No Face Killer, who's another good player, a SoCal guy, and who I assume will be traveling soon, and he's gonna get there, and he will impress people. But at NCR, it should have been Alex's day, because he broke it down to like just the most basic level of, I hit you with this stupid low and you can't move, and if you try, I get to take like half your life. And no one had a good counter strategy for that other than pick a character he doesn't know, run up and throw. So, but at the same time, because it sounds, when I say that, it sounds like I'm just actively shitting on No Face, and that's not true. We can have a period later where I actively shit on people, and I would love that. But
we can do that. Don't worry.
Yeah. But for now, I want to say that's the other thing is, for someone in No Face's position to identify, like, holy crap, like this Shiba just rolled up my Ivy and I can't move, and this doesn't work anymore, and this is different, and blah 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 blah. To have the presence of mind to figure out something that will work and ruthlessly exploit it, that's a good tournament skill. So, we saw good stuff from him. We saw good stuff from Alex, Zeph in third, very, very solid. Yeah, so I mean, that kind of there are some people to watch out here, and the really, what I'm looking forward to is to see how everyone continues to develop their game and kind of let it evolve and change, and what we all figure out. It's kind of cool in the sense that once more we're in a situation where there hasn't been a whole lot of interaction between East Coast and West Coast. So when it does go down, it's probably going to be real grimy.
Which I'm curious because I was trying to think of this on our last podcast, but you have Power Up, which is actually very, very close. And I have a feeling that'll probably be the East Coast version of their experimental tournament, since no big tournament has played on the patch yet.
Mm-hmm.
But like you have that, then you have UFGT next month, and then I know I'm missing something in June. There's something in June that I'm just forgetting about.
Is it CEO?
I actually asked that question. I can't remember when CEO is. Is it in June? I'm not sure.
I think it has to be before Evo because it has Evo points, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure exactly when it is. I would, because there's got to be something in June. When have they announced or they probably have, but have they like set up like SoCal regionals or anything like that yet? Because don't they usually do it around this time? I thought they did, but
yeah, I've heard the whispered tales of something along those lines. I don't know specifically, and I know there's an MLG event in the SoCal area coming up before too long. And again, no official Soul Calibur announcement, but if they do that, then that'll be a chance for us to get some of that esports money.
Yeah, I just read that all the top qualifiers from this MLG in Ohio are getting like flown out to New York, the top 8, sometime in the near future.
I
heard something about them flying people somewhere, but I didn't really catch any of the details.
Yeah, that's their weird, I believe, closed door championship thing. I don't know. It's some kind of elitist crap.
Because, and the reason that, I kind of trying to sort this out is because I think Evo might be the next time that we see any East Coast, West Coast action, or I should say the first time with Soul Calibur, because I can't think of any other tournament going on within the next couple months that would bring, the biggest names from both coasts to one place. Because final round was probably the biggest opportunity, but not a lot of West Coast people showed up for that. And then most of the East Coast guys went to MLG rather than NCR.
Yeah.
And then I would imagine most of the East Coast guys are either going to go to CEO or UFGT before they go to SoCal regionals or anything else going on the West Coast. So I think we probably won't see any of that until Evo, which is fine. Evo is the biggest stage, so might as well have it there. But it'd be nice to have a little bit of grudge matches going on before that. But I guess we're gonna have to wait on that.
Yeah, we can just talk shit in the meantime.
Yeah, it's like you guys are ass. Bring your coast. Man, I actually miss those days where every region hated every other region. like I distinctly remember people having $1,000 money matches at national tournaments, and then people waving their state flags everywhere. I remember these happening, but you just don't see it anymore. It's kind of a shame, but
people are just getting too old, and the new generation is just too nice, I guess.
You know what? That's exactly what I think it is. I think it's just like indifference. Like everybody's so old, they see beef and they're like, whatever. I did that 8 years ago. I'm not really interested in digging it up again. But it's a shame. We need to teach these new kids to hate each other, I guess. But now it's all online heroes.
Well, yeah, everybody's like online, like stroking each other's egos, I guess. I don't know how these kids do it these days. Oh, why can I not get on that action then?
Well, you gotta get there's a special drive with a USB adapter. Yeah.
Link me after the show.
On it.
I think you can link him right now. Actually, send him right over. Oh, funny. So okay, so I guess unless you have any sort of special tidbits about NCR, I did want to ask you about NCR and MLG, because there was there's a lot of talk, like a lot of people hated the fact that both of these tournaments were on the same weekend, and a lot of it has to do with scheduling. Obviously, the two groups aren't going to be emailing each other back and forth to see what the best weekend is. But I think one thing, at least in my opinion, that a lot of people need to understand is even though all of the players that played on that weekend didn't all get together at one spot, we are getting bigger, and that's just one indicator of it. Because you have two majors going on at the same weekend, we kind of need those. We can't have one tournament a month anymore. There'd just be too many people at one event. Evo is the one that's supposed to be getting over 1,000 people. We can't handle that sort of volume every once a month. So you got to spread it out a little bit. And I personally liked seeing two separate events going on at the same time. I thought it was really interesting, kind of compare and contrast. And it was especially, we've mentioned it a couple times already. It was especially interesting because one was playing pre-patch and the other was playing on the patch. But how is your take on that? Do you hear a lot of people kind of complaining about that? It's like, oh, I wish I could have gone to MLG, but I wanted to go to NCR and that whole thing.
Well, I don't know if I hear a lot of what you just said. I sure didn't hear that because that confuses me. But I guess I've heard some of the conspiracy crap, and people who are saying, "Oh, MLG, they don't respect us, and they did this on purpose," and I just woe betide the person who says that within slapping distance of me, because it's asinine. It doesn't make any sense. There's not any kind of contingent relationship between the scheduling of these events. And you're absolutely right. It's nothing to me but a really positive sign that we can sustain two major tournaments on the same weekend. I think that's pretty cool. Additionally, we got two pretty different products, and not just because they were playing fundamentally different games, though the same skins, I guess, but also because they're two really different ways of doing things. And some people might be more entertained by the MLG model. Some people might like Alex doing it big at NCR. It really depends. There's more space and more options. And if our strange little hobby is going to continue to grow, we have to be, we have to accept that sort of thing. We have to be open to different versions and different or conflicting schedules from time to time, and not be weird about it.
One thing that I always thought was interesting. It's I obviously wasn't at this most recent MLG, but I can only imagine that the hype at NCR was a lot bigger than MLG. And I remember a while ago, Ultra David wrote a little bit of an article on one of his MLG experiences where they were watching a StarCraft event, and him and a few other guys were just going ape shit in the background, and somebody actually asked them to shut up and and called down because they wanted to listen and watch the match. It's two very, very different spheres colliding there. So I'm kind of curious, like, your take on that. Like I said, I'm sure NCR was crazy nuts at times. But do you think that the MLG model is successful, where they kind of, here's your chair, sit there, shut up, and watch your event? Or do you like the whole hype train more?
Well, as a spectator, I like the hype train a lot, because that can stand in, like, if people are acting like morons. Okay, did you guys go back and watch any of the matches from NCR?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay,
I have not yet either.
Yeah, it's honestly worth it, because like Alex J was doing shit all through the finals that people still have a problem with, and I love every second of it. Like I don't know. I was talking to Alex last night, and he said that this dude, Unseen Wombat, has been jock riding him afterwards, and like everywhere just talking about how Alex has no sportsmanship, and you're a mean man, like that kind of thing. And it's awesome. Like no matter what, every match, Alex would win a round. He starts stomping, staring people down, talking shit, and every time he beat someone, he would just point at Signia because Signia is this quiet little guy, and he was very abrasive, very aggressive, and it was awesome because even if you, and by the end, like a big contingent of SoCal people came in, there's yelling and screaming, and even if you had no stake in the outcome of these matches to begin with, like you guys are from the Midwest, you really don't care. You haven't met anyone out here, whatever. All of a sudden, you look at this and you're like, well, that guy's a dick, or that's awesome. And so that helps develop a rooting interest, and that can be very, very good from the perspective of a spectator. I think so anyway.
Absolutely. And I don't want to speak for Billy, but at least personally, like I've seen so many players do stuff like that, and it's all in good fun. It's just trying to get under somebody's skin. You're not actually trying to hate on anybody. But I've seen guys like do something special in a match, and whatever it is happens to take a second to unfold. So they just set their controller down and just let it happen. And then, pick it up a couple seconds later. It's like, brush your hair or whatever. Seeing guys with the fro and they got the pick in there, and then just set down their controller real quick, watch their character kind of, do some damage and pick it up a couple seconds later. It's insulting, but it's not something that's so egregious that you should hate them for it. But, I absolutely agree. Some people are going to hate that. They don't like the complete disregard of sportsmanship that you could perceive that as. But
and one of the things to think about, and particularly because we look at MLG and it's way more civilized. And you referenced the Ultra David piece actually. He points to, and I think he's absolutely correct. In that article, he points to what he sees as really fundamental demographic differences and cultural differences between, the sorts of people who get into fighting games and the sorts of people who get into StarCraft and whatnot. It has to do with economic barriers to entry and a whole bunch of other stuff. But basically, the face-to-face interactions, going all the way back to the arcades, that's a series of social norms that have a really different genealogy than what you get with the people who do the PC games and the stuff that really gave rise to MLG as we know it. Anything that's more facilitated by an internet connection than sitting next to someone and, having to smell them. Very, very different.
I like how you say
so.
Because, man, that's so true, though.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the most salient features of the experience. But, at any rate, though, one of the things that we kind of have to confront here is, again, we're continuing to grow, and it's Soul Calibur players, but also just fighting game players in general. And one of the major vehicles for that growth is online play. And we're getting younger people, and we're getting people who are lag warriors and doing all that stuff. They are internalizing a way of interacting with one another vis-a-vis games that is based a lot more along the same foundations as the StarCraft players, let's say, than anyone who grew up in the arcades. So I think that we're seeing, the demographic of people who want to consume this, people who want to tune in and watch and play, I think they're shifting more toward the MLG model. And so, we have to be extra dickish toward them and treat them even worse. So it's like a crash course. Otherwise, we might lose our beloved way of life.
I just wish that they had little arenas that we could rent out, a la like Pokemon, just have your fucking players in the middle, and then everybody just go and fucking ape shit around it, like an actual sport, not these auditorium like things that they have set up, like at MLG and sound booths and stuff. No, fuck that.
Yeah, like at the GSL, like both players sit in that soundproof booth, and I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
Make them sit next to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. If they can't touch each other, they can't play. So that's simple.
It's like Your APM spam will be nothing now, son.
Oh my god, I'm just like thinking up of all sorts of ways you could fuck with your opponent. And in that sort of atmosphere, just like completely crop dust the whole area. And StarCraft matches aren't short, so you gotta chill there for 10 minutes smelling your opponent's ass. Oh my god. That would be such a huge dick. But
I feel like with the death of the arcade scene is also like kind of the death of the hype train. Because, like, I really haven't seen a whole lot of hype. I guess, like, like the Marvel 2 days, like, everybody would go to an arcade and they would just scream at each other. And that was very entertaining.
They wouldn't even play. They would just scream at each other.
Yeah, I mean, like, screaming at people over Xbox Live or PSN just isn't as gratifying, you can't scream right in their face. So...
It's true. Although some people try. They try really hard. But... yeah, no, I feel you, and it's and I think a lot of people, because of that, they've lost the ability to cope when people do that. So it's like, we're so used to it that if something like that happens, maybe you beef for 5 minutes, and then afterwards you're like, hey, that was a good match. But now, like, they're going home and they're writing your name in red ink on some list, so it's not. It's a completely different atmosphere, but that's my biggest concern when it comes to the whole MLG and quote unquote community events. However you want to define those is I'm not a silent person when I go to events like that. I don't want people to be silent, and it would suck if it would change to just completely anti-hype, where you have to sit there and be completely silent. But
I don't think that that's what we're facing, though. It doesn't strike me as like this binary where it has to be, we're all sharing the same awful case of ringworm because we're packed together so tight and screaming and yelling and punching, versus church or something like that. I think there's a happy medium, and and a few of us, if we just kind of do our thing and subversively infiltrate MLG and pervert it to our own ends, then I think we'll be set.
Yeah, that's one thing that I would like to encourage everyone out there, is that if you have the opportunity to go to an MLG event, go, and then if there's anything you don't like, tell them. Because they run their stuff like a business, so obviously certain aspects you probably won't appreciate it as much as an old school run event. But at the same time, businesses take feedback seriously, because if they don't, then they're going to lose customers. So, if you consider it like a product and one that they can keep improving on, there's no reason that MLG can't be really fun and really hype. But efficiency aside, of course, apparently they already have that down. But yeah, interesting stuff. The whole hype train, and I don't know. It's one of those things where I really hope that we can compromise eventually and find that happy medium. But everybody likes to complain. So.
Well, I mean, now that esports is like, more of a deal than it was 10 years ago. I mean, everybody's like really, at least I feel a lot of people are looking after the, how StarCraft did their whole thing in Korea and how they make money. So they're just trying to kind of use that as like maybe a starting off point. Like, oh, okay, well, these people have an audience that sit there and they watch the match and they clap and get excited when the match is over and not during it. So, I mean, I feel that's where a lot maybe MLG kind of gets their business model, kind of from like the OGN. So, I don't know. Just my feeling on it.
It's probably true, but at the same time, I would say that I don't think MLG is actively enforcing the quiet game on people. It's a lot of this stuff. These are audience practices that are kind of built up and enforced by the audience, based on their own expectations. You get enough fighting game people in there, and they're gonna be constitutionally incapable of shutting the fuck up.
That's very true. It's because I wasn't there, I don't really know how they had it set up or anything. But one thing that's about like most fighting game events is you have everyone who's playing the same sort of game, so it's easy for them to look at the big screen and sort of get hype if there's a really interesting match going on. But I don't know how MLG had that set up. So if you only have like this little niche crew over in a corner kind of doing their own thing, it's hard for them to get loud and excited about it. But I guess if they kind of mingle the different groups, maybe they could, people who are looking for hype, they could increase that a little bit, I guess. But again, I don't know exactly how they had their things set up. So if it was anything like that, or if the MK crew had a really easy access over to the Soul Calibur boosts and vice versa or whatnot, but
who knows?
Yeah.
See, that you should have asked Esam.
I should have asked Esam, but he was not about hype for that tournament. So
the tournament failed to reveal his greatness, and so the tournament was clearly flawed. But
well, that's kind of player he is. He's one of those people who will always give his opinion, and he's not going to apologize for it.
Oh, no, it's great. I like Esam after many years of resisting that idea. So.
After resisting the idea of liking him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just as an aside, the first time I know this is maybe not the most compelling content here, but the first time I ever met him, I was riding somewhere in a car with a bunch of people, and I used one of my $5 words that accidentally slip out of my mouth from time to time, and he accused me of not knowing what it meant. And I did know what it meant, and I used it correctly. And it took me like a half decade to forgive him for that. Because that's the kind of person I am.
You like to hold a grudge. Yeah,
oh,
nice.
I do my children.
But you know what? I have no problem whatsoever seeing Esam doing something like that. Because that's what he likes to do. He likes to call people out, he likes to press people's buttons. But
Esam is his own hype train for himself.
He is his own hype train. But that's why I admire that. He hates on everything. Everything he hates on.
I've known Esam for like 14 years now? No.
So yeah, it's something like that.
It's for a long time I've known him. And I don't know. It's just it's a quality I really appreciate in him, I suppose, because no matter where you go, he's got something to say to someone, and you might just get into a fight at any time. So that's just something true. You can't buy. You just can't buy that.
You can't buy fights. No, and that's funny. Again, kind of to echo your own statements. This isn't really the most compelling content, but I'm going to do it anyway. He has literally almost gotten into fights because of his attitude. And there's a Minnesota player, a Minnesota Tekken player. His name's Reggie, and the guy is massive. I'm 6'4", and he's taller than me. I want to say he's like 6'5", 6'6", and right now he's actually an MMA fighter. And he's just this huge black dude, like just completely as intimidating as can be. And I don't even remember who he got beef with, but Esam was just being Esam, and somebody got mad. And the first thing this guy said, he just looked at the guy and he was like, "You really want to start this right now?" But that's kind of what makes Esam Esam. He's like, "Hey, I know I can fuck with you, and no one's gonna really do anything about it." So, but to speaking of that whole issue is the last podcast. It was kind of weird because a lot of people were kind of hating on him for calling out Ryujin, but at the same time, throughout the podcast, there were many times that he said, that he liked a lot of the guys that he was hanging out with, and he respected them, as players, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of weird that you had this weird. It sort of connects with what we were talking about earlier with the whole. I don't want to say hype train, but just the way that we all try to get under each other's skins. At the same time, we know we're all good, and we know that at any moment we can take matches or whatever from each other, but like we hate on each other just cause. It's like there's no real reason for it. It's like, I know I can beat you, so therefore you suck. And a lot of people have that mentality. And I don't know, I guess the whole way that some people, you mentioned it before, Hates, that Nationals appearance for SC3, you'd beat down on all of them before 2 weeks beforehand. So it's like, you know what, you guys suck. I don't even need to play in this tournament, that sort of thing, even though even had you won the Nationals, if you go through it, there's so many instances where one person wins a tournament 1 week and then the very next week somebody else just busts them out. So It's a very volatile and fluid community, I guess you could say. But I hope that no one took Isam's words too personally. He's just being Isam. But it kind of goes back to the whole thing with being able to cope with people talking shit. I can tell you for sure that Isam was not trying to be, what's the word? He wasn't trying to be too hateful. He wasn't doing it personally. It was just a comment. But
and that's why it's the work of an amateur. Because you see, all the stuff that you said, I just find it baffling. We say it just to say it. I don't get that. People, if I tell someone that they're trash, it's because they're trash, and I'm not gonna misread. Isam is the worst player I've ever seen, but so is pretty much everyone I've ever played at anything. They're all terrible.
Yeah, well, it's really easy to remember. If everyone is terrible.
Yeah, you name them, and
they're bad.
God awful. Yeah. It kind of disgusts me because it's hard to maintain attention for long enough to even beat them. But I think we're starting to wander down garden paths here.
I think so. One more tangent before we actually move on to something that's probably relevant.
Okay.
When I think it was Ryujin commented in that last podcast, and he was kind of listing some of the people that he'd beaten, and he mentioned Sword Lord, and the first thing that I could think of was you guys just going off during final round about that guy. I was like, well, not everyone agrees with you on that one, at that name for sure, but I just thought that was really funny. But anyway, continuing on, now that we've kind of talked about hate a little bit, I guess it's your namesake, so whatever.
Well, truth in advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Soul Calibur specifically. So
yes, please.
Rather than just the events, let's talk about the actual game. We mentioned the patch a little bit. I do want to ask real quick, because Isam kind of dropped a bomb on us for that podcast. So I don't want to be too greedy, but do you happen to have any inside knowledge with Calibur and what may be coming or what may not be coming?
Well, I certainly have nothing that I can talk about. That's me being mysterious. No, because the thing is, I know nothing that's worth talking about because I know nothing concrete. I got a sense of the priorities of a few people, and that means fuck all. So
so anything that you have a good feeling on, maybe, that you can talk about, like, everyone's talking about this, so we will probably be seeing this in the future.
I don't even know if I can comfortably speak with probablys. I have my own hopes, and I have my own particular sabers that I rattle a lot. As I said earlier, one thing I really don't like are the backdash changes, and I hope that those get revisited in some, to some extent, and I can't help but think that they will, because I see the game becoming really, really lame as a result of those changes.
Sock'em robots.
Jop is one of my best friends in the world, and I kind of agree with. I pretty much agree with his assessment. And I remember I got the crisis call from Dallas right after the patch came, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is terrible. What do you have to say for yourself?" Like I had anything to do with it.
I'm personally blaming you.
Yeah, sometimes when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. There's some way to finagle that metaphor to make it work. But basically, yeah, I was like, look, because at the time it hadn't affected the way I played, and if both parties are kind of have a gentleman's agreement to, I'm gonna play, but I'm gonna focus on spacing and movement and fun things. Then the game plays beautifully. But if one person says, "Fuck it, I'm gonna be lame," you stay put because because mathematically speaking, it's almost always better to swing than to do much of anything else. And there are serious problems that come from that. That said, I don't think I necessarily want them to just straight up revert it to the way it was. And I would hope that they don't do that, because I'm not a person who thinks that movement should be free. Because I'm opposed to step guard, and I know that you kids just love it. but I guess my objection is that I don't. A lot of Soul Calibur players seem to be locked into this notion that things have to be either or. Movement must be completely safe, or just like junk hanging in the breeze, unsafe. And it doesn't have to be like that. I think that there are happy mediums. You can have a certain degree of risk on various things because you get pretty good payoffs. Like a sidestep, to me, I love risky step because if you do it right, most characters in this game are taking damn near half a bar. And I don't mind putting some life on the table if I'm going to get that much in return. But what we saw with the backdash change is it's this kind of cascading effect. When you lose one relatively safe option to deal with stuff, it all of a sudden makes every other unsafe option less appealing. And it just radically changes what best practices are in terms of gameplay. And as more and more people figure that out, I think it's going to become, it's going to be less interesting for someone like me who wants to run away and be lame.
I've actually mentioned a few times that I completely understand, just like you said, with it's a whole risk reward model, and sidestepping. I understand why you would want to add a risk because of the potential reward you can get from a successful sidestep. And at the same time, Billy and I have mentioned several times, we come from an era where movement was free. You could do whatever you want and move around as much as you want and have no care in the world. But I do think that moving at least forward and backward should be essentially free. I'm completely cool with, sidestepping. You're going to have to put that much life on the table, like you said. But I really am opposed to not being able to backdash. So most of my time I just sit there.
Yeah.
Hope
what character do you use, by the way?
Oh God, good question. I want to say that I'm a Yoshi player, but I just recently started playing Cervantes, and I like him a lot better. But
because he's manly.
Yeah, well, he is manly.
He's got a beard.
He does have
chest hair.
But my problem with like both of those characters and pretty much anyone is the whole you're up in everyone's grill. So I want to do all this cool, crazy, awesome setup shit with Cervantes, but you can't because it involves moving around. And if I'm moving around, somebody's going to catch me.
Yeah, I usually just say AM all the time.
Yeah, he hits me with lots of Grim Step bees, and those suck. But aside from that stuff, with Yoshi, I just 2A, and then I look for my quick full crouch 3K to knock you down. I just AA, 2A, whatever to get you to stop moving and then knock you down, and then just try to keep repeating the process. So I play really cheesy, essentially, but I don't want to, but I'm kind of forced to because of the way that the system is right now, and so I don't really know who I want to play. To be honest, I've always been an Astaroth player, and I love Astaroth, but I don't really like him in this game because I don't feel that just guarding is enough for him to get people off of him, and he doesn't have a quick option. But like back in the Caliber 2 days, you had a universal GI, you didn't need a bar to do anything. So you could kind of get away from somebody's pressure by using those GIs effectively. But now you don't really have that. You have the bar. You need bar to use a GI. Just guarding is harder than your generic GI used to be. So it's a little bit more difficult, and I'm not that good of a defensive player.
Well,
to be able
as an aside, I will say this: Guard Impact is really good in SC5, and that's one thing that people are not doing enough of at any level, be it new players, even really top players. I mean, for once we have been given a Guard Impact that actually doesn't suck, and that's why it costs meter. Everything else in the past, even if you factor out all of the many glitches that let you block after someone Guard Impacted you, you still, when that system worked perfectly, you're taking a guess because you had to use one GI or the other. You're taking a guess where if you guess wrongly, you're going up in the air. And if you guess correctly, you're granted with a mix-up that could still result in you going up in the air. So it's not, if you can read the other guy, it's great. But if two people are, let's say, equal in their magical Japanese Yomi powers, then it's kind of a bad bet. But now it's a get out of mix-up free card. And that's pretty awesome. I think people are undervaluing it within that context.
I definitely am.
Yeah, I understand how good it is, and I'm still kind of getting the feel for the system, because the way that your bar is, bar is very precious. So unless you're losing and you get a full bar in between rounds, a lot of characters use their bar in their offense. So you're not thinking about using it defensively because you want to save it for when it's your turn to attack. And I'm still kind of learning that balance. And I haven't really messed around with Astaroth post GI, so I'm not exactly sure what he gets off of it. But
guaranteed throw attempt. It's all you need.
I guess, but it's still one of those 50-50 mix-ups. So you guess
50-50 right. For half your life. Yeah,
That's
take
true.
it.
That's true. That is very true. But with like Yoshi or Cervantes or any other character with a quick 3B, it's guaranteed.
Well, yeah, but okay. But in those situations, your opponent can re-GI, whereas they cannot re-GI the throw. So if your opponent has more than half a bar, any of those other characters get a 50-50 for half your life. So it's the same basic function. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. But again, just like I said, it's one of those things where I'm still kind of getting the feel for the new GI, so I don't know exactly when to use it, when not to use it.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I mean, to kind of go back to the whole Astaroth thing, but because of that, it's kind of hard for me to play him because I'm not used to the whole Street Fighter 3, being able to kind of option select out of stuff, or being that good at anticipating what your opponent's going to do, to be able to just guard like a pro, as they say. But so it's really difficult. I need a 2A now. Without a free GI, I need a 2A of some sort. So.
Well, and that actually I'm kind of glad that we got to the GI stuff and through Astaroth, blah blah blah, because what we were talking about earlier is having to, without the backdash, kind of the desire to stand in one place and to swing, and that's kind of what the game is turning into right now. But one thing that I'm leaving it open for this. I can't predict how the game will change once people start really effectively employing the defensive tools we have, like Guard Impact and Just Guard and other sorts of things like that. That might open the game back up, and it could just be that we're gonna have to go through this really sort of unpleasant birthing process before we get there. You never really know. So I don't want to come off as too negative, and I've been accused of that by, well, humanity. So.
Well, that's okay, because we've had negativity on this podcast before, so I don't.
We'll have it again.
Yeah, it'll happen again.
Okay, I like that. We're drawing a line in the sand here. I support you in your negative endeavors.
Well, I'll say the same thing that I once said in one of our Tekken podcasts that was particularly flamboyant. if you don't like what we're saying, I don't want you as a listener. So it's so if you don't like our negativity, stop listening. Pretty much that simple.
Sweet.
But, that's how we roll. We do this for free, so expect a semi shitty product. It's just the way it goes. But I'm wondering with the whole not to backtrack to actual caliber stuff, but I'm wondering if like the whole GI thing doesn't turn into maybe like the guard break with MK, where like everyone's saving their bar for that, and then maybe in certain situations where you think that using your bar for something else will give you enough advantage that it's going to win you the round or match or whatever it may be, then maybe you won't use it. But I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting to see how it develops and what kind of, I don't know, setups people use with it.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, because now that movement is nerfed, I can only imagine that GI is going to be more important as the game develops. But
yeah, I think so. And really, it's when it comes to looking at things like this, it's not even a particularly complicated analytical metric you got to run things through. You want to sit on bar and save it for stuff like spamming out supers when you're in any kind of trouble, or guard impact and this, that, and the other. But for anything, you kind of have to look. Once you get a little starter meter, once you get a little bit of meter in the tank, or pretend you're a panhandler, you got to go and you seed your little cup with some of your own loose change, so people won't feel weird about being the first one to give you something. Once you've got that starter meter, then you actually get into the realm of what is the net effective cost of this. So, like, for example, Cervantes' character, I play a lot, I know him pretty well. Every time he lands a real combo, every time he launches you or does an IGDR, he builds a quarter of a bar. So if I guard impact you and launch you as subsequent to that, I really only spent a quarter bar on the GI. Because I built half of the meter I spent to do that back in the process of taking my free damage. And there are a lot of other things where you kind of look at what you build based on what you're granted from throwing out your spammy Brave Edge move or your guard impact or whatever, and then you can build a much more nuanced meter management strategy based on something like that. And it's not entirely correct to think of it just in terms of, well, I've got 2 full bars, I have 4 guard impacts, and that's all I can do, or anything like that. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know sometimes, even though I hate guard break, I absolutely hate it with every piece of my soul. But with guard breaking, as well as gaining a meter in certain situations when you lose a round, watching matches, it's very interesting watching the nuanced play of people who are used to it. And I've actually started to do this as well. It's like, if you're up 2-0 rounds and you're blinking red, just sit there and block.
Yeah,
and
take it.
Just let them break your guard, because even if they win the round, well, that's okay. You're not blinking red. So if they're going to win the round anyway, you might as well just reset your guard.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's one of the big issues, is this game goes so goddamn fast. Because everybody hits like a fleet of trucks, and it's just boom, 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 and there's so many. It's so much better to always be putting moves on the screen and just doing stuff that it goes at a really good clip. And because of that, the fundamental unit of this game is not a single round, and also because of the mechanics that transfer over, like meter and guard meter and so on. The fundamental unit of SC5 is the whole game. It's a 3 to 5 round stretch, and you have to kind of start thinking of it in those terms, because otherwise you're just sort of flailing about and you don't have a plan. Like, 'cause I don't want to guess at people, I want to read them, right? But to do that, I need a certain sample size of what are you going to do when I put you in this situation. So you have to create situations. You have to put people on the spot so they can show you their tendencies. But chances are you're going to get bent over for it a few times, and you have to learn to be cool with that and let a round or two go and not worry, and work toward, build towards something, in the closing, in like the last round or two, build towards something that's advantageous there. And it's really kind of, I think, for people who came up without these transferring mechanics, and like, I cut my teeth on FC2. It's a weird, it was a weird transition when I first had to do it, and now I kind of like it. It lets you be sort of subtly mean to people.
You're trolling them and they don't even know they're getting.
Yeah, I just my fighting style is dickery. So
nice. Yeah, I am like in other games where you don't really have that sort of advanced planning. It's all about, hey, win this round, and then the next round is just a reset. It's nice because I am the master of blowing 2-0 leads. I'm the master. No one does it better than I do. But now, if I'm blowing that lead, I still feel as if I'm setting myself up for a win, maybe, in the final round. So I don't feel nearly as bad. At least I have something to work towards while I'm getting my ass beat. And maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but at least it's there. Something productive I can be doing while losing. But it's just it's fun watching people do that. And even though it's not something that's common with fighting games, you're making those decisions for further rounds. I shouldn't say not common, but like I know Street Fighter has that sort of mentality. But at least for me, with the 3D background, most 3D fighters don't have that sort of thing. Once you go to the next round, it's just a complete wash. But
yeah,
you start in the middle of the stage. So
yeah, and it's also, I think it's especially pronounced in this game. So it's something that you have to consider if you want to be a good player. It's not just something that you might have the option, or, I'll look into that one of these days. It's like, no, you need to really get a good handle on all the shit that's going to carry over. And, you need to be able to anticipate things, even if it's just something as simple as, I got 2 rounds, my opponent has 1 round, and I'm about to die. I better blow a full bar right now, otherwise it's wasted.
Yep.
It's that kind of thing. It starts there and it builds into far more baroque and strange tactics.
Hey, I broke that wall first round. Hey, it's still broken. What do you know?
Yeah.
4KK. Goodbye.
It's important.
It's very important. Absolutely. Oh, well, man, I'm starting to get zapped out of questions once again. Anything you can think of, Billy, that any topics of discussion?
Well, an interesting, conclusion I was making while I was listening to Hades talk about how the game is getting lamer with the whole movement thing was when we first had our first podcast, we talked to Biblius. He was like, man, it's so hard to lame people out in this game. I just don't see it really happening. And then one patch later, we're talking about how easy it is just to lame people out.
Well, I think that we're employing the term differently, though. Bibulus was trying to say, I believe, that it's hard to run away and be a little bitch. It's arguably harder to run away and be a little bitch. Now, little bitchness is made manifest through other things, like when in doubt, press 2A, things of that nature. So it's there's kind of a subjective, qualitative lameness here. It's a little bit different.
To which you can judge people's little bitchiness.
Well, yeah. Well, qualitative, not quantitative. We can't tie like a specific number to it, which, I mean, that's the holy grail, right? Is figuring out exactly numerically how much of a bitch you are. But barring that, if that's not an option, we at least get hints and clues.
Oh man, yeah, a lot. It's kind of not to kind of make the same point Billy was making, but it is weird. We've only this third podcast, and like the topics are the same, but they're drastically different at the same time because of the patch and the changes to the structure of the game. But
that's something that's actually, when you think about it, divorced from any specifics, it's kind of cool, and it's also something that we're fated to deal with it, so we might as well suck it up and deal with it. In the sense that gone are the days of, in the long forgotten past, these excuse me, these wise mythical Japanese game designers would go to the top of Mount Fuji, and then they would descend later with a game that they would give unto us. And
if only that still happened.
Yeah, but and we had it, and it was perfect and an unalterable artifact, and we had to just kind of deal with it. But now games are dynamic, living things, particularly because you just download a patch, and so I think it's really important for everyone not to get too high or too low on any given change cycle, because there are more. Namco has been pretty darn aggressive about demonstrating their willingness to adjust things with this game. So I don't see any reason, there's not any reason to assume that we're stuck in one particular point. And as a result of that, my primary concern is not so much with the health of the game qua the game, because that is going to keep changing and hopefully it'll get better and taken care of and yada yada yada. I'm more concerned with the health of the community and their numerical level of little bitchness, because as long as the people are cool and have decent attitudes, and we keep going out and supporting the game and showing up to events and doing this, that, and the other, then we'll be okay, because the game will keep cycling through versions and whatnot. It'll stay fresh and hopefully it'll get better. We just have to not drop the ball on our end.
Well, with this kind of makes me think of another question. With that being said, about the health of the community, now that Caliber's netcode is actually fairly decent. I mean, there's still plenty. It's internet, so there's still plenty bad. But
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, relative to the trash that we've had to endure with other fighting game netcodes, it's above and beyond the best I've ever seen. So do you think that maybe we should start employing that more, and rather kind of trying to break away? Is it that time to try to break away from this brick and mortar sort of mentality where if we aren't sitting face to face, that it's not legit?
No, it will. I think given the level of technology available to us right now, no. I mean, I want to see some, I want to see stuff out of like bad 1970s sci-fi before I'm willing to commit and say that it's just as legitimate. But it's useful, and it's useful on two levels. The good netcode that we have right now. Number one, frankly, it's a pretty solid way to get better. I mean, I have been an online warrior in this game, and that's something that I never thought that I would do, because I hated online play with like every other fighting game I've even brushed up against, let alone tried to take seriously. But now, I mean, probably one of the guys who I probably practice with most is Omega, and he's in Florida. I'm in Northern California. We're going across the United States in the bad direction, diagonally, and it still works out. It's playable, and it's actually pretty damn good. It's good enough to the point where there is stuff to be learned, and so as a practice tool and as a tool for just getting exposure to different matchups and whatnot, it's incredibly useful. And that's where it's legitimate. It's also good and legitimate. I said two levels, right? The other level is keeping people interested and knitting the community together a little bit, not just in terms of screwing around on a website or anything like that, or through even content like this, but knitting the community together at the fundamental level of shared play. That is a good thing. And if we can manage to do that and keep that at a robust level without buying into this ridiculous notion that online is legit, offline is not, therefore who needs tournaments, because that we'd be slitting our own throats.
Well, and just like even with StarCraft, the tournaments themselves, like the big money stuff, I mean, that's still a live tournament. I mean, it's the players are that. Granted, they have to connect to Battle.net and all this other stupid stuff. But
yeah, that's
they're
silly.
still in their soundproof booths, 10 feet from each other, so they're not across the world. But yeah, well, I'm wondering if you mentioned practice, if maybe it's time we start devoting some real resources to getting hardcore practice sessions with groups of players going. Do you know if obviously players coordinate that sort of stuff with each other on an individual personal level, but do you think maybe that's a step that not just 8-Way Run, but other games that are going to be coming out here in the future should take, to trying to get these things going on the forums and stuff?
I think that'd be a really positive thing if done properly, because there are some logistical things that you would obviously need to sort out, make sure connections are good, and you don't want too many people waiting around in line. But for the players who are notable and whose names are recognizable, they have that exposure to some degree, kind of getting them out amongst the people and letting the poor plebeians taste their power that's actually super important, because what you want to do is what you want to do is what will happen, which is that people will get in there and they'll probably get worked. But it's online and it's online and it's real life. Anything can happen. So they'll probably get worked, but they may not get worked as bad as they expected. And you all of a sudden begin to inculcate this notion like, hey, I can do that too. It's like, I'm fat, I'm friendless, I have all the requisite things, and you just get out there and you dream big and you go for it. It's kind of, I think that would be a way to facilitate to some degree what the poker world saw with the Chris Moneymaker effect. Some schlub comes in and gets $1 gajillion. He
turned out to be a really good poker player too.
Well, yeah, that's the part that they didn't really advertise to people. It was much more of the you're an everyman type thing. And it's some guy, he looks like me, he sounds like me, he has a pedigree that resembles mine, which is nothing, but he did it, so why can't I do it? And if you get more interaction between folks whose names appear a lot on forums and at the top of tournament results, and other people who are just kind of starting to get into a game or think it's kind of interesting, I really see a lot of potential positives to come from that, because folks will start to see, they'll start to, whether or not it's true, they'll start to say, well, I could do that, and that's how you draw people in. You give them that little taste of success, and all of a sudden you get addicted to the strange neurochemical reactions that take place in your brain when you start whooping ass.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe we should start doing that. Start sponsoring some players and being like, oh, hey, tonight, anyone log in and you can get your 10 matches with Omega and get worked.
I think that'd be really cool for people. And you know what? Folks would also tune in to watch that. I can almost guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
If you had some kind of a streaming rig, that'd be good shit.
You know what? That's just a call out to all the top players. That's what they should do. Start streaming your matches and just tell everybody that you're playing at this time.
That's no different than StarCraft or League of Legends that all do that, But going back to the whole getting people to play, it's like I can remember the exact match when I first started playing Soul Calibur 2 against Flo, that I was like, oh my god, why can I not beat him? I should be able to beat him. In fact, I'm going to learn how to beat him. Because when we were playing Taki on Taki, his very first time I'd started to learn how to play Taki, and he pretty much God matched me. And I was like, this fat Jew is beating my ass right now, and I'm not happy about it.
I think we've all had that moment.
Yeah, I don't remember my moment, but at least not that vividly. But oh, that's funny. Well, hey, this is why we have that podcast, trying to fill everyone's brain with some ideas, some creative stuff, some knowledge, maybe. Who knows? Cool. Well, man, that's all I got to say on that subject. Any other comments?
I'm tapped.
Fresh out.
I'm tired. I worked all day.
Yeah, I do too. That's how we do. We have to, throw boxes around and then come home and sit on our ass. But that's okay. We have stuff. that we can do in video games to play. So you mentioned earlier, Hates, that if we wanted to give you your little soapbox so that you can shit on everybody, that you'd be happy to do that. So with us being tapped out of topics and subjects, I guess I'll throw that at you. If there's anybody that you want to shit on, or I don't know if you actually want to praise anybody, call out, shout outs, whatever.
Shout outs.
Whatever you want to do, I'll give you the moment. Any final comments or anything?
Yeah, it would be easier, if you just called out names of players and I could tell you that they're awful.
Let's just go through a list.
Yeah, because I'm looking here. Okay, I got the NCR results. No Face Killer, fucking trash. Alex J, worst player ever. Zeph, garbage. Signia, awful. Hate's pretty good. Snort, who? Genver, Cedric, they don't matter. Let's see, MLG. If this loads.
Oh. Kevin Keane, whatever.
Oh, French.
Came over from France to do nothing and show us nothing.
Yeah, Keeve, Scrub, RTD Scrub, Region. Well, ESOM dealt with that. Something unique, terrible. LP, no, just no. Wing Zero, Scrub. County we dealt with. Hawkeye, awful. Yeah, everyone's terrible, man. I'm pretty good. Omega's not bad. He's my friend. I like him. Everyone else just can't stand him. They should just all quit.
Oh man, that's ridiculous. I like that though. That's awesome. Okay, so we got.
So I make friends.
Yeah, it's a good way. I hear. Put everybody on blast. Eventually, somebody will stick. So you have at least one friend. I mean, I know that's how Billy rolls in real life.
In real life, that's how I do it.
Yeah, in real life, that's how he does it. He doesn't really care so much about gamers; they don't piss him off as much. But real people in real situations piss him off.
But it's good to have your priorities on straight.
Yeah.
That's true. I will not hesitate to tell someone to die instantly the second I meet them.
Well, can you
do this?
Yeah, but can you make them die? I mean, that's sort of a toothless comment. It's better to tell them something unpleasant about themselves. It's not die, but it's like, God, you could really stand to lose about 40 pounds, take a bath, and get a job. That kind of thing.
I actually have somebody that lives at my house that I tell that to pretty much every day.
True. And sometimes he can't really say the job comment because he's at work when he's telling people this, so he can't really tell them to get a job because he knows.
Yeah, there's definitely a picture of me of worst employee of the world in our HR department.
But yet they don't fire you. I don't know how that works.
That's because I'm good at my job.
And really, it's more important to be hatefully remembered than forgotten entirely.
There you go.
That's true.
So we make our mark.
Oh, funny. Well, man, that's okay. So we just shit on as many people as we could think of, and then we talked about other random stuff. So that's all I have. Anything else? You said you were tapped out, Billy. So I'm guessing no other comments or anything from you.
No.
Okay, well then I will end it on this note. Tell everybody that Power Up is just around the corner. Billy and I will be there, so if you want to meet us and try to punch us in the face, we know Kung Fu though, so
I'll give you an autograph.
Yeah,
with my fist.
we autograph with knuckles. But aside from that, yeah, Power Up, get out there, Evo points. Even though there was a little bit of a bracket debacle last year, the event itself was actually really fun.
I'm actually pretty sure I'm going to win Power Up because Hates already said everybody was garbage. So
it's true.
I mean, it's a crapshoot.
No,
I got a pretty decent chance. Everybody's garbage and I'm garbage. I have just the same amount of chance to win.
No, you are peculiarly bad. I mean, I pity you, actually.
Wow. Well, cool. Well, you can come. Anyone is welcome to come out to Ohio and see us be very bad at Soul Calibur. And we will be running brackets, so hopefully we can tell you how bad you are, which I do fully intend to do. by the way. So hopefully everyone is in my bracket so that every time someone wins or loses, I can tell them that they're bad at the game.
Take the Tim Smith or the Tim Fury Smith approach. No matter what, you're bad.
Oh, you won? You're bad. Sorry.
Get out there and prove that you're the least worst.
That's all we're fighting for. We're just fighting for least bad. Cool. Well, turnies. We look forward to more hate speech, as always. I know I enjoy those articles.
Thanks a lot.
With you and your $5 words. So, it's always fun because I just know half the people reading that have no idea what you're talking about. But
I refuse to believe that. I think that people are smarter than we are inclined to give them credit for. They just are a little bit ashamed of proving that on the internet, because then all of a sudden people start expecting things.
I certainly hope so, but if precedent is anything, they are not smart. But cool. So we got that all taken care of then. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Hopefully maybe you'll, you're pretty good. So maybe you'll get a top 5 placing here again, and we can try to get you on the podcast. Once we hit the actual character stuff, all shit's going to go crazy. Hopefully. So.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me, and I would love to come back and ramble aimlessly with you guys again. It's been a blast.
I'm wondering, with the other games, or at least the plan was to, do character-specific podcasts, but I'm wondering if we're going to have to, do each patch version of each character. We'll have, 1 billion different podcasts. It'll be great. We're all on YouTube, so, we like to make, our quarter a month on each video or whatever it is that they pay you, slave labor wages. But cool. Okay, so we've rambled on enough. We will be at Power Up, everyone. You should make it out. And then we got UFGT, which we will also be at next month. And then, of course, EVO, which we will not be at. But, it's how it is. So we will try to get more awesome people who hate everybody on again. And we hope maybe you learn something, whatever. We do it and it's entertaining. So we will catch everyone next time.